Welcome to another Crypto Spendthrift interview session. I'm here with Maomao for the Kora Network. So let's kick it off with you just talking about the Kora Network and giving viewers an idea of what this is about.
Yeah, so the Kora network is our underlying blockchain. And the ultimate goal of Kora is really to provide low cost and equal access to financial services to as many people as possible. And specifically what the Kora network is it's an application specific blockchain network. It just does financial services, and we provide access to identity and to money transfer and lending and co-ops. And these are accessible to anyone who can access the blockchain. And then we also provide access to the blockchain without internet by going through telecom networks. Yeah, that's what we do.
So can you kind of describe like what made you or you and your co-founders want to do the Kora Network? Because most projects aren't as social focused or humanitarian based as yours.
Yeah, there's a social focus. Although on the flip side, we also think that the market working is a huge, unserved opportunity because the cost to serve has just been so high that people have just neglected it. But the other thing is that it's a big market opportunity as well. But so I'll leave Dickson to kind of describe his own reasons for doing Quora. But I will say that this is his third financial inclusion startup.
Yeah,
So
Go
yeah.
ahead.
Basically, why we started Kora is because we understand the problem. We've seen a lot of projects try to solve this problem, but we noticed that there has been a huge infrastructural deficit across emerging economies. Lack of internet access, no access to smartphones, and digital financial services are mostly provided to people on that higher class. So we thought, why don't we abstract an infrastructure project that can provide financial services regardless of your geographical location, um, economic situation, internet accessibility, and financial capability to afford a smartphone. And we've built all these functionalities into our blockchain to provide these services across this region. So that's why we started the Cora project.
All right. So can you delve a little bit deeper about these infrastructure issues and how it would benefit like everyone as a whole to kind of help integrate these more unserved areas?
yeah, so a lot of places that we operate in, there's not really a ton of financial infrastructure from a infrastructural standpoint. A lot of times there's no internet. Sometimes even electricity can be spotty. And what that means is that it's difficult to prove your identity. It's difficult to access digital financial services. It's hard to get a loan. Um, and all those basically restrict these people from getting the same opportunities as everyone else. And so those are really kind of the problems that we're trying to address. So, for example, in the beta we're doing in Nigeria, that's really about it's really about helping farmers get paid, where we're doing domestic money transfer from the city into the villages. For a project we're doing in Colombia, that's really about cross-border money transfer, about moving money from U.S. to Colombia. Um, and so those are the kind of things that we're working on.
All right. So uh, talk about the. I'm going to kind of talk about the network specifically, like some of the things that were included in your white paper. Uh, One question I kind of would figure people would wonder is like the roles of each user, provider, and the agent that you have.
Yeah, so the ultimate goal is really to create, like we say in the title, it's to create self-sustaining and community-owned ecosystems. It's really about creating a balanced flow of funds. And so, in fact, let's look at the people you just talked about, the provider, the agent, and the user. So, in any environment we go into, we operate under regulatory frameworks. We're not trying to be a cryptocurrency that just says, okay, governments can do whatever they want. We're going to do this and that's that. And so we need a provider to provide that regulatory access, to provide, to inject a certain kind of trust into the system that we find um, definitely tends to make people more willing to enter the ecosystem. For agents, because what we're really facilitating is digital financial services. And so for agents, they really serve as cash in, cash out points where you can go in there, you can take some cash and use that to get some e-fiat, or you can take some e-fiat, use it to get cash. And so they're really they serve, that kind of gateway function. And users are really people that, want to receive payments or want to send money or want to try to get a loan. And so we're trying to build this balanced flow of funds where there's always money coming in on one side, it's flowing through the system, it's being used as a medium of exchange, or whatever people want to use it for. And it's kind of coming in and out of the edges, which is the agents, and everyone in the system is working towards a common goal, which is growth of this network. And so that's how we're trying to create what we call, self-sustaining and the community-owned ecosystems.
All right. So it's kind of like a system with less friction since it's digital.
Definitely. We want to, one of the people assume cash is zero transaction cost, but that's not really true, right? If you had to drive an hour to meet someone to give them some cash, that transaction cost is that your time lost, the gas you burn and whatever. And so yeah, one of the big values that we bring is reducing a lot of friction inside these systems.
Also noticed you mentioned a lot of these communities kind of rely on just standard SMS for their phones. And do you think there's any concern, like security flaws with that? Considering it's kind of a big deal with other crypto with the authentication.
Yeah, I would be very concerned if someone was using SMS because you can't encrypt it. So we actually use the USSD protocol, which is pretty well used. There's like hundreds of providers for USSD across the developing world. We're developing our own anti-fraud systems, and then each user we call it a brain wallet or a wet wallet, where each user has to store their PIN, and that should really be unique to them. So there's a few layers of security that we're putting in here.
Okay, so kind of to dive into more tech side, a system like this definitely has to have relatively fast transactions. And I noticed that you're using Ethernet as like kind of the base foundation. Why is that? And can you kind of explain what that is? Because most people definitely don't know about like this little fork.
Yeah, so Ethermint is really it's implementing the Ethereum virtual machine and then using Tendermint consensus to submit transactions to it. And so you can kind of think of it as being able to run any Ethereum program, but with like 2-second blocks or 1-second blocks. And so that's how we really get around the scalability issue.
And also, didn't it have, considering like delegated proof of stake instead of a different protocol? Is that right?
So Tendermint only works when Tendermint's very fast, but it works only when you have a bounded validator set. And so if you say, okay, these are the validators, then you have a centralized system. You have a distributed but centralized system. And so the way that decentralize that system, which is kind of crucial to really getting the cost benefits of decentralization, is using our token. You delegate that to elect block producers. So one token is one vote, and then use that to say, okay, this person, they have data center experience, they're running some really great hardware, they have 99.999% uptime. They look like they would be really good at running one of these nodes. And so you would delegate some of your stake to them if everyone else in the community agrees, and also the owner puts on some collateral that would get slashed if they behave maliciously, then they become a block producer and they start kind of maintaining the blockchain. And as a reward, that person would get block rewards as well as all the delegators for that user. And so That's the kind of that's kind of the inner workings of the blockchain that we're developing.
And for a comparison to users, something that's similar is kind of bit shares because they really kind of started the whole concept of delegated proof of stake, which personally I do see more people probably adopting, and you're already seeing proof of work kind of phasing out for most newer coins.
Yeah, you know, you don't really see many new proof of work blockchains coming out. And yeah, we studied BitShares very comprehensively. You know, at this point, it's been running for several years. It's doing a lot of amazing things, really, considering how early it was around. And you know, the system has also evolved a lot. It's a very sophisticated kind of governance system underneath. Um, so yeah, that's been one of our inspirations.
So you mentioned you already kind of have use cases for this. Can you go a little bit more in depth with them and discuss how you're already kind of implementing the system?
Yeah, let me tell you about something really cool that we have coming up, probably in April. I mean, could start at the end of March, but it'll probably be April. So it's a Bangladesh co-op, and so they have 50 branches, very small branches, 5 to 10 people running each branch, in Bangladesh, about 35,000 users total, and everything there is being done on paper, which is amazing that it even works. It's been around for 20 years, and so. They provide obviously savings. They provide very limited lending. They don't really do lending. They provide access, a basic standard for food and other essentials. They provide logistics. They provide outlets for distribution. And so they're really a very comprehensive co-op. And so we are in talks with them to essentially migrate them over to Kora and to use Kora as a core banking system for them. And they also have a lot of really interesting plans that we can't share right now, but you know, it's not. I wouldn't be surprised if they're able to grow to, 200,000 users at least by the end of this year. There's a huge need for these kind of services in Bangladesh, and they have a very strong growth model and obviously a very long track record. So that's a really interesting project that we're working on.
Yeah, that's kind of like mind blowing that they are doing all that on paper.
Right? Yeah.
It seems like kind of being able to upgrade all these more unserved areas and areas with less infrastructure than most the more developed countries would end up benefiting like the entire world as everyone kind of gets up to standard.
Hmm. Yeah, I mean, hopefully it's a win-win for everyone.
And any more use cases? Because you mentioned Nigeria.
Yeah, so we're doing domestic money transfer in Nigeria, which is with a number of farmers. So that's with a co-op of 25,000 farmers.
Yeah.
And most likely that one is going to expand to the cities as well. And it's really going to start linking together producers, such as farmers, with exporters, and start doing some cross-border money transfer. So, you know, we've a really interesting user interview we did was with this Nigerian restaurant owner in Brooklyn, New York, where he imports large amounts of food directly from Nigeria, and he doesn't really have a reliable way to make payments. And so that's a great use case that is highly underserved right now. And there's just so many of these opportunities just lying around because it's such an underserved market.
Yeah, I can see that pouring into more aspects than just the financial area too. It would definitely affect like more supply chain based stuff, considering vendors would have an easier time linking up with suppliers in those areas and be able to kind of, in effect, kind of help develop those areas as these suppliers grow from being able to link up with various vendors and such.
Absolutely. You know, like we said in the beginning, we see a really big market opportunity, period. I mean, we see the ability to help a lot of people, and that's really how successful companies grow, right? By helping people.
So, what's kind of the ultimate vision with the Core network?
I wonder if Dickson's on, because he's got a great answer to this.
Yeah. So, I mean, what would what we would say at Kora as a fulfillment for our project is the day that we, as an infrastructure company, become the turnkey solution to any service provider that wants to serve these underserved markets. Literally, the flow of funds or flows of financial services, especially remittance, is only seen from one side, which is the receiving side, But people always forget that remittance has two parties to it. It's just like a marketplace, right? Someone is sending and someone is receiving. So one of the core things we are trying to do is to make this process seamless, shrinking the world to become one small global village of financial services and giving toolkits to any service provider to be able to serve these markets. So our grand vision is that one day we would be the biggest blockchain network that powers thousands of MFIs to serve thousands of communities around the world. And that's our grand vision at Kora.
Sounds good. Funny enough, I read an article pretty recently about how the Bank of America had in their statement to the SEC how they were worried about cryptocurrencies kind of disrupting their business. And this seems like one that will end up kind of being on their eyes, considering once you kind of help these underserved areas, it'll be a massive thing.
Yeah, for sure. Yeah. Like this is our position at Kora, right? When Kora initially started off, we wanted to be this last mile service, like being that interface between the user and the financial service product. But we realized there's this bigger spot. And if we facilitate that infrastructure, literally, then we can be the back end, we can be the backbone for thousands of various other financial services products. Speaking of identity, speaking of marketplaces, speaking of money transfers, lending, speaking of FICOs in terms of financial credit scores, financial ratings, which doesn't even exist in a continent like Africa right now. There are endless possibilities, and there needs to be an infrastructure, first of all, that everyone can tap in to build this identity that will have loads of other derivatives. So that's where we're going for. That's like we want to be the powering engine for the new generation of financial services, and not just powering it via normal banking methodologies, but powering it straight up mobile phone, straight up USSD, straight up no internet access. Everyone can be able to access our services.
And being a backbone for infrastructure is definitely the way to go. That's most of the projects that do that have the most success than being a specific application.
Yeah, we believe so.
And so we can wrap this up, and every time I wrap up a podcast, I allow the creators to just have a little ad plug. Tell the listeners what you're doing or what kind of actions you want them to take after listening to this.
So, what would love the listeners to take? First, my co-founder always says something right. He says we don't have any message except from Kora. So Kora is our message to the world. So if we want to leave a message for the people, we just want to leave Kora for the people, right? Say this is our message. This is what we want to achieve. This is what we want to accomplish. We envision a day where 1 billion people will be powered by the infrastructure that we are building. We envision a day that thousands and billions of transactions in the magnitude of Visa and MasterCard will be powered by our network that we are building. So Kora is our message. Keep up to date with Kora, support Kora, and support the project.
Great.
And you can find us at Kora.network. That's Kora. Feel free to join our Telegram. And on top of that, we are literally opening up the whitelist for our pre-sale today. And we're doing a 24 million token sale. And we have like a 23 million whitelist right now. So, and the actual public sale happens March 26th in almost exactly 1 month.
All right. thanks for coming on the podcast.
Thank you for having us.
Thank you, Cameron.
Of course, like I said, I was kind of glad to have you since this was a different kind of focus from what usually I get.
Yeah.
Yeah, we get that a lot.
And so, I'd like to have you on the future once you kind of had time for Kora to blossom and such. And I hope good luck to you guys.
Yeah, I must also commend your podcast. This is one of the few podcasts we've gotten that it's been 95% product as opposed to 5% token sale, right? It's mostly speculation out there in the market. So we love your podcast. We would love to be back to give our roadmap. We are building amazing things we can talk about now, like Maomao said. We're rolling out 3 products off the box, Kora Money, Kora Pay, and Kora Network. We can share a lot about that, but we would love to come back sometime next month, 2 months, when the products are ready, to say what numbers we have going through the product, number of people we've been able to impact through the product, and the future roadmap of our product.
All right, looking forward to it. So thank you guys again, and this has been another Crypto Spendthrift interview session with the Kora Network.